The Fall of Aetheria. The crew of the Odyssey and Aetherians had barely began the recovery of the first battle when the sensors detected a new wave of Drakari ships approaching Aetheria. This time the enemy was better prepared, bringing advanced technology and new tactics. The crew and Aetherians braced themselves for the next assault, knowing that the battle ahead would be even more challenging. Captain Rodriguez stood on the helm, her eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. She knew that she had to be ready for anything. The fate of Aetheria hung in the balance, and they would need every ounce of strength and courage to defend their home. The Drakari wasted no time in launching their attack. Their ships descended upon Aetheria with a ferocity that took the defenders by surprise. The energy shields held strong against the initial assault, but the Drakari's advanced weaponry began to take its toll. Explosions rocked the landscape, and the ground shook with the force of the impact. Lieutenant Sarah Thompson led the aerial defense, her squadron engaging the Drakari fighters in an intense dogfight high above the planet. The sky was a chaotic dance of lasers, fire, and evasive maneuvers, each pilot pushing their skills to the limit. Despite the overwhelming odds, Sarah's leadership and the combined efforts of the human Aetherian pilots managed to hold the line. On the ground, Alex Carter and his team worked tirelessly to keep the defense system operational. The energy shields flickered and strained under the relentless barrage, but Alex's quick thinking and technical expertise kept them from failing. The Aetherians, with the advanced technology of the planet's terrain, set up strategic ambushes and traps to slow the Drakari's advance. Captain Rodriguez coordinated the efforts from the command center, her voice calm and authoritative over the comms. She directed the movements of the ground troops, ensuring that they were always one step ahead of the enemy. The battle was fierce and the casualties mounted on both sides. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Drakari were not going to relent. Captain Rodriguez knew that they had to do something drastic to turn the tide. She called an emergency meeting with her senior officers and the Aetherians' leaders to discuss their options. "We can't keep this up forever," Rodriguez said, her voice filled with determination. "We need to strike at the heart of the fleet and take out the command ship." Kaelin nodded in agreement. "The Celestial Lance has the power to do that, but we need to get close enough to use it effectively." Dr. Marcus Lee, who has been studying the ancient carving, spoke up. "I've been working on a way to amplify the Lance's power. If we can get into the right position, we can deliver a devastating blow to the Drakari fleet." The plan was risky, but it was their best chance. Captain Rodriguez gave the order and the crew sprang into action to prepare the Celestial Lance for deployment, knowing that the mission could be their last. As the Celestial Lance unleashed its fury, the crew of the Aetherians watched in anticipation. The beam and energy tore through the Drakari command ship, causing a chain reaction that ripped through the fleet. But just as the victory seemed within reach, a catastrophic malfunction occurred. The Lance's power core overloaded and the weapon shattered into fragments, its energy fading into the void. The Drakari, sensing the vulnerability, launched a relentless counterattack. The ships descended upon Aetheria with a ferocity that took the defenders by surprise. The energy shield flickered and failed, and the ground shook with the fierce of the Drakari's assault. The Drakari's onslaught was merciless. Explosions rocked the landscape, and the crew of the Odyssey fought desperately to hold their ground, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. One by one, the defensive systems fell, and the crew was forced to retreat. Captain Rodriguez, Lieutenant Thompson, and Alex Carter were amongst the last to fall. They fought valiantly, but the Drakari's superior firepower and numbers proved too much. Badly injured, they were captured and taken on aboard the Drakari command ship. Dr. Kaelin and the Aetherians' leaders faced a difficult decision. Realizing they could not win the battle, they focused on evacuating as many of their people as possible. They knew that the survival of their species depended on their ability to escape and regroup. Kaelin addressed the remaining Aetherians and the human crew. "We must evacuate immediately. Our priority is to save as many lives as we can. We will take the broken Celestial Lance and the surviving crew of the Odyssey with us. We cannot let the Drakari capture this technology." The Aetherians, using their advanced transporters, began the evacuation process. They worked quickly and efficiently, transporting their people and the human survivors to the evacuation ships. The atmosphere was tense, filled with the urgency of the mission and the fear of the approaching Drakari forces. Dr. Marcus Lee, despite his injuries, knew that he had to buy Aetherians, the human crew, enough time to escape. He stayed behind to create a diversion, using his knowledge of the Celestial Lance to rig it for a massive explosion. As the Drakari closed in, Marcus activated the remnants of the Lance. The weapon, though broken, still held immense power. He set the charges and prepared for the end. The Drakari were closing in, but Marcus stood his ground. In his final moments, Marcus thought of his parents and his legacy they had left him. He thought of the crew he betrayed and the Aetherians he had come to respect. He knew that his actions would never be fully understood, but he hoped that the sacrifice he would make a difference. The explosion was blinding, and a brilliant flash A brilliant flash of light that tore through the battlefield. The Drakari were thrown back and the advance had halted. The Aetherians, seizing the opportunity, activated the transporters and fled for safety. Marcus' sacrifice had given them the time they needed. The cell was a harsh metallic chamber, with dim lighting and a constant oppressive hum. The crew was shackled to the walls, their movements restricted. The rocket guards, with their reptilian features and cold calculating eyes, watched their every move. The Drakari wore dark armored suits that seemed to absorb the light, their presence imposing and menacing. Captain Rodriguez, despite her injuries, maintained a steely resolve. She knew that showing any signs of weakness would only embolden them.